The moment that millions of fans had been waiting for has finally arrived. Justice for Menglong. The beloved actor and singer whose tragic death shocked China and reverberated across the globe, is finally being delivered. The ruthless kingpin who orchestrated his murder, a man long whispered about in the shadows of the entertainment industry, has been dragged into the light. Name is Chen Yong, and after years of evading justice through power, intimidation, and corruption, he now stands arrested, facing the harshest punishment the law can deliver. For fans of Menglong, for his family, and for all those who cried out against the injustices of a corrupt system. The moment feels like a vindication. The case is no longer about whispers, theories, or speculation. It is about hard evidence, courtroom confessions, and the undeniable truth that one of China's most feared men has finally fallen. Menglong's life had always seemed like the stuff of fairy tales. He rose from a modest background to become one of the most recognizable faces in Chinese entertainment. He sang with sincerity, acted with quiet charm, and cultivated a public image that seemed untouched by scandal. To his millions of fans, he was not just a star but a symbol of purity in an industry often accused of being tainted by greed. That is why his sudden death, discovered in his own bedroom under deeply suspicious circumstances, sent shockwaves through society. The initial reports were confusing. Some outlets dared to suggest suicide. Others floated the idea of an accident. But those who knew Menglong best, including his longtime partner and co-star Xing Fei, immediately suspected something darker. In the months that followed, evidence began to emerge that Menglong had not simply died, he had been killed. His bedroom became a crime scene, and investigators uncovered chilling signs of struggle. What had been whispered for years about the entertainment underworld, that young stars were forced into compromising situations to serve the interests of powerful elites, suddenly felt undeniable. For a long time, no one had the courage to name names. But slowly, the investigation zeroed in on one man who seemed to cast a shadow over every dark corner of the industry, Chen Yong. Chen Yong was not an actor, not a director, certainly not a fan favorite. He was something far more sinister, a kingpin who operated behind the curtain, pulling strings with money and fear. For years, he had controlled production companies, arranged financing for major blockbusters, and maintained close ties to investors with questionable backgrounds. He was the kind of man who never appeared in the headlines but whose influence dictated careers. Rumors swirled that he demanded obedience from rising stars, forcing them to attend private gatherings and serve powerful guests. Those who complied were rewarded with contracts, endorsements, and stardom. Those who resisted found themselves mysteriously cut out of projects, smeared with damaging rumors, or worse. Menglong, according to those closest to him, was one of the rare few who resisted. Xing Fei revealed that he had once been pressured to serve guests at an exclusive banquet, an order he flatly refused. That decision, noble as it was, set him on a collision course with Chen Yong. What should have been an act of integrity instead became a death sentence. For years, fans speculated that there was more to Menglong's death than the official reports suggested. Now, with Chen Yong in handcuffs, the truth is no longer speculation, it is fact. The investigation into Chen Yong was long and treacherous. Police spent months gathering evidence, much of it painstakingly hidden beneath layers of shell companies, offshore accounts, and loyal enforcers. Every lead seemed to vanish into silence. Witnesses were too afraid to speak, and those who did often retracted their statements under mysterious circumstances. Persistence paid off. According to leaked details of the investigation, the breakthrough came when a former associate of Chen Yong, facing his own legal troubles, decided to cooperate with authorities. His testimony revealed not only the scale of Chen Yong's empire but also directly implicated him in ordering Menglong's murder. The crime was as calculated as it was brutal. Chen Yong allegedly viewed Menglong as a threat, not just because he refused to comply with the unspoken rules but because his refusal risked inspiring others to do the same. In a system built on obedience and silence, one man's resistance could unravel everything. And so, Chen Yong gave the order. Menglong's death, staged to appear like an accident, was in fact a message that no one defied the kingpin and lived to tell the tale. Yet the plan backfired. Instead of silencing resistance, it ignited outrage. Public reaction was fierce from the very beginning. Fans organized candlelight vigils, demanding a full investigation. Hashtags like "Justice for You Menglong" trended for weeks. His colleagues in the entertainment industry, usually so cautious in their statements, began dropping subtle hints that there was more to the story. Even international outlets picked it up, framing Yu Menglong as both a victim and a symbol of an industry in desperate need of reform. Chen Yong, once untouchable. To feel the pressure. The walls were closing in, and the police had no choice but to act. When Chen Yong was finally arrested, it was in his luxurious Shanghai villa, a palace filled with marble, chandeliers, and imported cars. Witnesses described the scene as surreal. The man who had built his reputation on fear and untouchability was suddenly being escorted out in handcuffs, flanked by officers. Others peered out from their windows. Journalists scrambled to capture the moment. Fans online erupted in celebration, calling it the beginning of the end for corruption in the entertainment industry. Some described it as poetic justice, that a man who built an empire on the broken dignity of others was now publicly humiliated in the same way he had humiliated so many before. Yet the arrest was only the beginning. The case against Chen Yong had to be airtight. Prosecutors prepared meticulously, aware that any loophole could allow him to escape justice once again. They compiled financial records, surveillance footage, intercepted phone calls, testimony of insiders. In the courtroom, the evidence painted a damning picture. Chen Yong was not just complicit in Yu Menglong's death, he was the mastermind. He had ordered it, orchestrated it, attempted to bury it under layers of lies. His cold disregard for human life stunned even the most hardened reporters. Xing Fei, who had endured the agony of losing her partner, sat silently in the courtroom as the evidence unfolded. At moments, she wept quietly, supported by friends and family. But when the prosecutor named Chen Yong as the man directly responsible for her partner's murder, she lifted her head high. In that moment, her courage, the same courage that had led her to reveal the truth, shone as brightly as ever. For many in the courtroom, clear that this trial was about more than one man's guilt. It was about reclaiming dignity in an industry that had lost its way. The story of Yu Menglong and Chen Yong is, at its heart, a battle between light and darkness. On one side stood a young actor whose only crime was preserving his dignity. On the other, a ruthless kingpin who built his power on the exploitation of others. For years, it seemed the darkness had won. But now, the arrest of Chen Yong and the promise of the maximum sentence, light has begun to pierce through. This case has already left an indelible mark on Chinese society. It has sparked conversations about the abuse of power, the vulnerability of artists, and the urgent need for reform. It has shown that even the most untouchable figures can fall. And it has reminded the world that justice, though delayed, can never be denied forever. For Yu Menglong, whose life was cruelly cut short, this trial is a testament that his voice still matters. For Chen Yong, it is the beginning of his reckoning. The world now waits for the final judgment, but already, the story of Yu Menglong has shifted from tragedy to triumph. Once whispered in fear is now spoken aloud in courtrooms and broadcast across headlines. The truth is undeniable. The man who thought himself untouchable is now facing the harshest punishment imaginable. Justice has arrived, not only for Yu Menglong, every silenced victim whose story was buried by fear. The arrest of Chen Yong sent shockwaves through every corner of Chinese society. But it was the trial that truly gripped the nation. The courtroom became a stage where justice, long denied, was finally performed in full view of the public. They were not allowed inside. Yet every detail leaked to the press, the expressions on Chen Yong's face, the tears shed by Yu Menglong's family, the evidence displayed on towering screens. For weeks, the trial was the only topic of conversation online, dominating headlines and drawing global attention. Chen Yong, the once untouchable kingpin of China's entertainment underworld, entered the courtroom with the same arrogance that had shielded him for decades. Dressed in an expensive tailored suit, he smirked at the cameras as though he still believed his wealth and influence could buy freedom. But as prosecutors began to present their evidence, the smirk slowly disappeared. The case against him was overwhelming. Financial records traced his money flows to shell companies that funneled funds into illegal operations. Encrypted phone calls were decrypted, revealing chilling conversations in which Chen Yong discussed removing obstacles. Witnesses, once too terrified to speak, now testified with trembling voices but resolute determination. Perhaps most damning was the testimony of his former lieutenant, Described in detail how the order to eliminate Yu Menglong had come directly from Chen Yong. According to this insider, Chen Yong's words were chillingly simple: he refuses to obey. Make sure he never resists again. Courtroom gasped when recordings were played, allegedly capturing Chen Yong's voice during a private dinner. In the recording, he spoke of teaching a lesson to young stars who thought they could rise without paying the price. Though Chen Yong's lawyers argued the recordings were manipulated, forensic experts authenticated them as genuine. Piece of evidence stacked upon the last, constructing a portrait of a man who had long viewed human lives as expendable in the pursuit of power. Sitting in the front row, Xing Fei listened in silence. The relief on her face was unmistakable, but so was the strength. She had carried Yu Menglong's memory into that courtroom, ensuring that his voice was not drowned out by legal jargon or excuses. When prosecutors displayed photographs of Yu Menglong's bedroom, transformed into a crime scene, many spectators wept openly. The once cheerful actor, who had brought joy to millions through his dramas and songs, had been reduced to a victim of brutal power. Contrast was unbearable, yet it was necessary. It reminded everyone why they were there, not only to punish Chen Yong, but to reclaim Yu Menglong's dignity. Chen Yong's defense team tried desperately to counter the avalanche of evidence. They argued that the witnesses were unreliable, motivated by revenge or fear. They claimed the financial records were circumstantial. Phone calls lacked context. They even attempted to paint Yu Menglong as reckless, suggesting his death might have been linked to personal choices. But the court of public opinion had already delivered its verdict. The world knew who Yu Menglong was: a gentle, working young man who had refused to bend to corruption. The defense's strategy backfired, angering fans who felt it was an insult to his memory. Outside the courtroom, thousands of supporters gathered daily, holding placards that read "Justice for Yu Menglong" and chanting for the maximum sentence. Hashtags like Chen Yong trial and Justice for Yu Menglong trended constantly, with millions sharing updates in real time. National outlets likened the case to a national reckoning, comparing it to watershed trials that had exposed systemic corruption in other industries around the world. The difference was that this time, it wasn't just about money or power. It was about the death of a beloved star whose refusal to compromise had cost him his life. The trial drew to a close. The air grew heavy with anticipation. On the final day, the prosecution delivered a closing statement that would be quoted for years to come. Chen Yong believed he was above the law. He believed he could silence truth with money and extinguish dignity with violence. But today, I stand here to declare that no man is above justice. Menglong's voice will be heard, and Chen Yong will pay for silencing it. The courtroom erupted in applause, despite the judge's calls for order. When the verdict was announced, the entire nation seemed to hold its breath. The judge declared Chen Yong guilty on all counts: conspiracy to commit murder, obstruction of justice, financial crimes, and abuse of power. His sentence was the harshest possible under Chinese law, the death penalty, subject to review and final appeal. Gasps filled the courtroom, followed by cries of relief and joy. Outside, the crowd cheered, some falling to their knees in gratitude. Online, hashtags exploded once more: "Justice served, Chen Yong guilty. Justice for Yu Menglong." Xing Fei wept as the sentence was read. It was not joy but a complex mixture of relief, sorrow, and vindication. She had lost the man she loved, but at least the world now acknowledged the truth. No amount of punishment could bring Yu Menglong back. Knowing that his death would not be in vain brought a measure of peace. In her first public statement after the verdict, she said simply, "He was taken from us because he refused to betray himself." Today, the world has recognized his courage. Carry his spirit with me forever. The impact of the trial extended far beyond the individuals involved. For the entertainment industry, it was a moment of reckoning. Other executives and producers, long suspected of exploiting artists, began scrambling to clean their reputations. Authorities announced new regulations aimed at protecting performers, promising to investigate similar allegations of coercion. Young actors, once too afraid to speak, began cautiously sharing their experiences, emboldened by the fall of Chen Yong. For the first time in decades, genuine hope that systemic change might follow tragedy. Fans around the world organized memorials for Yu Menglong. Murals were painted in his honor, his songs replayed millions of times, and his dramas rewatched with renewed devotion. Some compared him to a martyr, and who had died because he refused to compromise his values. Though he never sought such a role, his story became symbolic of integrity in the face of corruption. In interviews, industry veterans admitted that Yu Menglong's refusal had inspired them to reflect on their own complicity in the system. His death, though tragic, was transforming into a powerful legacy. Meanwhile, Chen Yong awaited his fate in prison. Reports described him as a shadow of his former self. Arrogance was gone, replaced by a man pacing in his cell, realizing that the empire he had built on intimidation was crumbling. Associates who once bowed to him now distanced themselves, fearing prosecution. The fear that he had wielded like a weapon for decades no longer protected him. Justice, once distant, was now inevitable. Sentencing of Chen Yong was more than punishment, it was a message. It declared that the days of untouchable kingpins manipulating the entertainment world were numbered. It reassured the families of countless young performers that their children were not expendable commodities. And most of all, it honored Yu Menglong's memory by affirming that his resistance had meaning. The story of Yu Menglong and Chen Yong will be told for years to come. It is a story of innocence corrupted by greed, power abused to the point of murder, and of love and courage shining through darkness. It is a reminder that justice can be delayed but never denied. In the end, the truth caught up with Chen Yong. Justice was served. For Yu Menglong's fans, the pain of losing him will never fade. But now, they can remember him not only as a victim but as a symbol of resistance. His name will forever be linked with integrity, courage, and the fight for dignity in an industry that too often strips it away. For Chen Yong, the name once synonymous with fear, history will record only disgrace. And for the world watching, he stands as proof that even in the darkest corners of power, justice can prevail. The ruthless kingpin has fallen. Maximum sentence awaits. And justice, at last, belongs to Yu Menglong.